the computer. Okay. So recording is set now.
Okay. What are the housekeeping rules?
Okay, I think for this time, our housekeeping rules is you turn off your mic, and once you have the floor, then you turn it on. It's just very basic and very simple. We're just a small group today, and we're a group of friends more than anything, and we're thinking out loud together. So it's just the organizational part of, if you want to speak and be part of the lineup, you just put it in the chat, and that's it. So Denise was saying something very important. So Denise, would you like to start? So let me make a brief intro though before we start, but I mean, I'm glad that you are triggering the discussion. But Naveen, we would love it if you say a few words before we get into the core business.
Yeah. Okay, I think I'm really glad that we are starting our second general session, and I'm welcoming everyone, and hopefully as the sessions go on, we will have more people. And I think that this open mic concept and session, we are going to have at least once a month one like this. I mean, this is very important because this is how, as we go along, every time this open mic is usually, its output is based on those who are participating. So the more different participants we have, the more we are going to have different input and different experience. So thank you, Mariam, for the organization, and looking forward. And I think as we go along, we'll find people coming in. And so welcome to everyone, and let's start.
Great, Naveen, thank you. Thank you for the dynamics you put into the group, because you're the mobilizer and you bring everybody in, and that makes everybody super excited. And I think we will move on forward with this strong dynamics for this group. And looking forward to have it on the Rotary Action Group list very soon. Looking forward, yeah. So today, as we were just saying briefly, that we will have a very flexible format because we're a small group, and we're here to just brainstorm together, share, and keep even an open heart about what AI stands for and all the topics related to AI. From the past two sessions, I looked at our notes or the summary from the both sessions. In summary, in principle, this group thinks positive, very positive of AI and what it stands for, what can it offer to the group, what can it offer to the world, what can it offer to Rotary, how can we integrate it in our lives. So the overall understanding of the technology and its application is on the positive note. And this is, as a start, is something that I'm very happy with. And actually, every time after we finish the session, I'm super excited and energized. And I keep on turning, looking on at different, building on what we discussed, because each and every one of you really contributed something new. So the knowledge really in this group is immense, and I'm very happy to be part of this group. So let's start, and please feel free to write in the chat your name that you're interested to speak. Just I want to speak, and I will give you the word for it. We'll start today with Denise. she has put some facts for us that are worth discussing, and it will be a good starting point for our group today and for our session. So Denise, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mariam. So just a quick introduction in terms of my experience and like interest with AI. It's more on the user side. So I'm not researching AI, and I'm certainly not involved in anything to do with its innovation. I am an interested user, and I also, as I'm a corporate trainer and a business coach. And because it's one of the biggest disruptors to the business landscape at the moment, I've made sure that I've incorporated AI into my course catalogs. So I was looking at some stats and some data from McKinsey's and Forbes, and I came across some of the stats that I've put on there, which I found very interesting in terms of how AI adoption actually increases with revenue. So the more money a business is making, the more they have of AI integrated into their operations. So like we all know that AI optimizes our processes, and the key constraints of time and money in terms of talent management is areas that AI can really help businesses and be able to help them to optimize. So that was just something that I wanted to share with the group there, to say that the trend at the moment is looking like sorry, I do have to say that it's based on a study that was done just in the US. So it in no way reflects the rest of the world. I don't know what the rest of the world looks like, but certainly from a study that they did in the US, that's what they got.
Anybody would like to add on what Denise was saying, or to react to that and to do a follow-up? Okay. Okay, Bill, you want to have the second, or just to
No, to respond to
what Go
Denise
ahead.
was mentioning.
Yeah.
There's two things that are happening, and she's 100% right. The smaller the company, the less they are actually engaging in AI right now, unless they're a company that's being built on AI. There's a lot of small startups that are actually, AI is their business. They're using AI to disrupt, if you would, the much larger companies, and looking for their opportunity. And there's tons and tons. There's probably millions of startups in that category, and they're constantly watching every day what's the latest thing I can use to advance my company and move my company forward. But other than that, a lot of the small companies, a lot of the AI that's out there now is still going on in the foundational work. It's still going and creating the capabilities. What we don't have yet are a lot of finished products, AI-based products that small companies can just use. We have to remember, most companies, they're in the business of doing something, whether it's a plumbing company, electronics, or small retail, they're in the business of doing something. They're not in the business of technology. So the technology, any technology they're going to use has to be packaged so it's easy for them to take advantage of that. We will see that. We see with CRM, for example, and we see in many areas with cloud applications that a company can just plug into and they can start to use. But AI is moving so fast, it hasn't stabilized enough that there's that many such products out there. And we see, for example, right now, I don't know if it's 100% true or not, the rumor that plugins for ChatGPT, which was basically just made available last spring, are going to be phased out. So that means down, though, we're going to see more and more of these startups that are coming out with finished solutions. We see LTX Studio and things like this, where people are bringing out products that people can actually put to use. But it's not available right now. Bigger companies can say, oh, we've got Group Cloud and Explore, we can explore in technology. Most small companies can't do that. But I think before the end of this year, we're going to see that change.
Okay, can I comment? For Bill, I have a question. Like, would it be like in the near future that within the corporate world or within government services that, okay, we will not accept this data from you unless it is AI application so and so verified or came through a channel that is AI that involves AI?
Well, I mean, one thing we also have to realize when it comes to governments, it's companies where there's competitive pressure that are going to adopt AI the quickest because they're going to be forced to remain competitive. Organizations like government bureaucracies and whatnot don't have those external pressures to adopt the latest. They can continue to do whatever they've been doing for a much longer period of time. There'll be exceptions, but they just don't have the pressure on them to make quick change. To the point of where companies get to the point where they say, "Hey, we're only going to do business with people who will interact with us via AI." If I go back about 20 years ago, where we saw the whole distribution industry, the wholesale industry, places like Amazon. I happen to have been involved very much in architecting systems that interacted with Home Shopping Network and with Amazon. And we went from a period where you could forward orders or Amazon would reach out to distributors, to large scale distributors, to say, okay, what do you have that we can resell? And they got to a point where they stopped talking to people. They didn't want to talk to people anymore. Mm-hmm. They wanted to have your systems fully integrated with their systems so that they could have instantaneous, accurate information as to the availability of the products, so that they weren't trying to sell products that were no longer available and so forth. And so you had to be able to provide them at the latest the 24-hour accuracy to your inventories. And we're going to see the same thing happening, I think, with AI because of agent technology. Agent technology is going to connect so many applications, and business are going to be interconnected. And one of the biggest things is businesses are going to outsource so much of what small businesses now do that is not their core competency. They do it because they have to. They don't have an alternative. But AI is going to offer these alternatives that you're going to be able to outsource everything that's not your core competency. It's going to make small businesses be able to be more efficient and effective. But that's going to come. And the companies that don't do that are going to be very hard pressed. And we can see that in the medical field here in the United States. The idea that independent doctors have their own offices, that's disappearing very, very rapidly. Doctors have almost no chance of surviving unless they join these medical groups, because the medical groups handle all the bureaucracy, all the insurance processing, all the appointment settling, all this. So the doctor can just focus on being a doctor, doing what a doctor does. We're going to see that spreading into more and more professions. And music, the arts, music, video creation, graphic artistry, all of those types of things are going to, that's going to start happening very, very quickly because of the power of these tools. But it's not today, unless you are that's your business to leverage the latest technology. It's not ready for prime time. We have some amount of time, and then we'll see to have their own accounting systems, their own inventory management systems, and so forth. There are HR systems, payroll. And today you go out there and you buy QuickBooks for pennies, and you have the capability of what these large that's going to happen with the positive. We're going to see so many advantages and But we do have to realize it's going to have another side of that. So what do those humans do then? But that's the other side of the coin. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. My comment to Denise, if I can do a follow-up, you were saying that you've integrated AI as one of the courses in what you offer in your business. And my question or my comment would be, if we are encouraging people to use AI and to mainstream AI in their lives, also if we are, like Bill was saying, AI would be starting from the core, or a company built all around AI. I was discussing this a while back, that AI on its own, or AI developers, cannot function on their own. And the AI solution will be short of something. Pure technology is never enough. And I was always thinking that maybe you need social scientists alongside software developers or coders to build the AI technology or application. It is very important because the human side, the social side, the anthropological side, you need this to complement and to have a humane AI solution that would not, that would not only focus on technology, because there are a lot of aspects that will drop out. The cultural part of it. Sometimes when you work, for example, let's put AI on a side, just even in virtual teams. How many times when you work in a virtual team on technology or anything, any other thing, and you're working on a certain topic or project, and things fall short because of misunderstandings and cultural differences. So it happens. So from there, I think AI cannot, since we're starting AI from the very beginning and it's integrated in many aspects around our daily lives, it should have some sort of a cultural and social aspects to it, where social scientists can have a part in the development of it. Thank you.
If I may challenge that, Miriam, just a different perspective. So when you look at who we are as human beings, we are the sum of our experiences. So like the norms, the values and beliefs that make us up. Now, those external like inputs are things that can be trained to an AI. Now, I'm not saying that I fully support an AI at the moment with the current utilization that we have of, optimizing with AI. They are saying that it's replacing 2.1 human beings, using AI. And I think that it's only going to grow from that. So the more companies that are using AI, and also, the higher amount of work that they will then use AI to actually do. So, the saying is, and I think Warren Buffett said, outsource for 80% of what you do and only retain 20% of your competitive advantage. So I see in the future that the culture is actually going to be looking at optimizing 80% of the company's processes and systems and, whatever it is that they're doing with using technology. So I understand that. But into the technology itself, the last meeting that we had, Bill was talking about Devin. And I know that at the moment, I think I did go online at University of YouTube. So, we can't count for the data integrity of it. But I was just trying to get a sense from people as to what is after having used Devin. And they were saying that, it's not ready. So although it can kind of autonomously create code and, test itself and, deliver on user stories, perhaps it's not where it needs to be. But if the last year has shown us anything, is that the trajectory of how things are happening is very quick, and it's getting quicker all the time. So I anticipate within a few months, like Devin and other agents like Devin are going to be, the norm rather than the exception. And I think that in the beginning, yes, the social scientists might have some input, but I reckon that the AI eventually will be better than any social scientist at all, because they'll be able to gather like norms, values, and beliefs from many more areas than a single person can. And that's a shame. I'm not happy about it. It is a shame, but I think at a certain point, an AI is actually going to be better than a human. That's just my view.
If I
Perfect, thank you.
if I could get past, it's not a question of AI, the machine, versus humans. What it is it's really AI has the ability to go and retrieve, if you would, the thoughts and actions of millions of humans. So what it is whether we're talking about empathy or emotional intelligence, it's the empathy that one human has perhaps learned in different situations versus finding the empathy that has had the best results, because AI is just able to scan and say, what did all these millions of humans do, and which actions did they take that were perceived to be most empathetic? And it's the delivery at the end that counts. So I agree with what Denise said here. From a social scientist, if you go out and say, okay, AI, I want you to be an expert social scientist, it will take on that persona, and it will go and research all the information from the perspective of social scientists, and probably deliver to you better advice from a social scientific perspective than any individual social scientist is likely to do. That's really important, that we understand it's not, intelligence is the wrong word. It's the sum of knowledge and experiences of humans, and now more and more the knowledge and experience that are gained by sensors. Think of a self-driving car. All those cameras and the LiDAR and all that stuff out there is capturing information about what's going on in the world around that car, and it's learning from that. And we can see whether it's a camera on a street corner, whether it's something that's keeping track of the order processing time or the sequences of that. We're getting more and more information now that is not coming from humans. It's coming from these sensors and devices that we've got that are observing what's happening around the world.
Perfect. JR, you wanted to ask the floor to define pressures. Would you like to speak a bit?
Yes. So when we talk about, the social sciences being merged and whatnot, and, I'm concerned with, curating of the, global solutions to save the planet. When we talk about, pressures in industry, and, as you know, NASA only devotes 25% or so of their investment into science. Do you, as a human society, do you feel as though we are very invested in maybe a more centralized pressure from society instead of maybe industrial pressures?
Okay, anybody would like to follow up on that?
Yes, I would.
Thank you, Gabe.
The human nature is one where, Jarek and everyone else here, human nature is one where, and this is where I say AI may crash and burn in some areas, because human nature is one where humanity does not, like I was reading something that said from 2006 to 2022, we went through 100 years. Now from 2022 to just the end of 2024, we're going to go through 200 years. Like, we spread that fast. And human beings are not equipped. They haven't been equipped even to deal with what's going on. That's why we have severe mental health issues right now. It's not because of just COVID or whatever. It's because the world is moving forward at lightning speed, as both Bill and Denise said. But from a social scientist position and pressures, I think humans are going to say at one point, you know what, this is enough. We have to slow the AI down. Now, unfortunately, what Bill said and what Denise and Jericho are saying, at that point, I think it's going to be too powerful to stop because we will have given it already too much power. So now, all the movies and things that we have seen where, we're fighting robots and robots are overpowering or I forgot the word, but so I'll just say overarching. I think that that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to be at the effect of it, I do believe that art imitates life. And yesterday, I'm an NCIS fan. And ironically, there was a drone that was taught to kill through, and the person had put in the personality of a 7-year-old child, and it can no longer be controlled. Well, I always look up certain things after I actually watch something. And I went to go look up online and found that Israel had released 3 drones that they had no control of anymore. And so they were now fighting against their own drone, actually striking them. So there was a social scientist, I don't know their name very well, very famous from Israel, saying Israel got behind the AI technology, and now socially, youth are not talking to each other. They're going through AI or ChatGPT or whatever. So there is going to be societal pressures, and I don't know if this answers your question, Jared, but there are going to be societal pressures. These 2 drones may actually strike Israel instead of Gaza. Okay, that's one. Number 2, people are now they're so addicted to AI, but they're not able to manage themselves. Technology. The last bit, the probability is there. IBM said they're laying off, they have 282,000 employees. They said they're laying off half their workforce. That's 140,000 people. So I don't know if that answered anything, but those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Gail. And those things for me are extremely important. When we talk about social pressure as far as use, and I know Denise is very focused on AI being used by the general public. When I look at something like GPS, for instance, GPS was a military application that we wouldn't have Lyft and things like this today if we didn't have it. We wouldn't be able to get anywhere, using the GPS on our phones. It's become, something that's handheld. It's very welcome in our world, and due to, our social pressures to use it. So when I, speak about our social pressures, I mean, what would I need with this? I mean, I'm a business leader and I need it there, but as a person, so that I'm not fearful, maybe what would be our social pressures to make it a bit more user friendly to the public, besides just maybe a chat GPT?
Well, that's the thing, Jerica, and I will say this. So in New York, I don't know if anyone knows this, but it's going to be copied across the country, but they're doing a pilot in New York. Now, this makes it unfriendly. If you don't have an electric vehicle to use for Lyft or Uber as a driver, okay, for some people, that's their business, okay? Now, Tesla is going to soon, what Tesla is in terms of, I heard Denise talk about competitive advantage. Tesla always never has a sustained competitive advantage, and they do it on purpose. They always have an advantage where Elon Musk, the way his mind works is he already knows what he's going to do 10 years out, but he'll do a little bit and let the car companies catch up, and then he'll do a little bit more. So when you have self-driving, he's going to be he's already done it a little bit, but he's going to turn that into a complete AI model, which he's already done, but he just hasn't equipped the cars yet. Cars that want it right now, at one point it was 15,000. Now it's gone down to, I think, 10,000 or 5,000 to add that additive. Well, in next year, 2025, June, I think it's June or January, don't quote me, all cars in New York who are Uber drivers and Lyft drivers must have their cars electric. Number two, they must have the component of that AI component. Now, that AI component with the GPS, what it does is if you owe a ticket, you will be stopped in the middle of the road on the highway, which can cause accidents, but they don't care. What they're going to do to augment that is they're going to have AI move your car over to the shoulder of the highway, okay, where you have no control of it. The police department comes to you, and you can't even get out of your car until the police department comes to you. This is what's happening. All of the drivers were telling me about it. I looked it up. I talked to my contact under Mayor Adams. He said this is absolutely the truth. So, Jericho, when you ask, that's just one aspect of why it is not something that people want to be open to, you know, because when drivers like this, there's going to, and then the second thing is 2026. It might be before, it will be all self-driving cars. So there won't be any need for drivers, which goes back to what Bill was saying about the 60 to 90% rule, that if he wants to share, that's fine, he can. But this is where things are. The Gen Z are going against, okay, AI. In a way, I'm glad, because they want to think for themselves. So I love AI, but there's the flip side of it. In terms of the arts, I want to say this because I'm heavily into it. I heard you say something, Bill, which was really, it probably is truth, but then again, it's not. You think people don't care about the process of arts? Oh, yes, they do. Oh, yes, but you said that they just want the final product. And so that is not the truth. People want to know the process. They can't, and I know you're going to answer, but I just wanted to say this. I just wanted to speak on these social norms that everyone is talking about. They do 90%. Now, a lot of the youth today, they don't want to, but a lot of them want to know the process. A very well-known artist, Lizzo, although she just wants attention most of the time, she is quitting music, okay? And there are several other artists that are looking at quitting music because of some unsavory things that have been done in the industry. But the pieces that I'm saying here is that just like the music industry and just like other areas, I don't know everything. These are just my personal thoughts and looking at the trends, you know? That's it.
Gail,
that's all I can say.
Yeah, Gail, if I can respond to a couple of the points you made. One is with regards to all the movies about artificial intelligence and robots fighting all the humans. Many of those movies, back in some central location, there's a couple of evil humans that are directing all those robots because they want to conquer all the other humans out there. So we have to keep that in mind, that yes, there is a risk that the robots will escape and they'll decide that they want to have their own personalities in charge. But the risk is much, much greater that you'll have somebody like the head of North Korea deciding, oh, you know what, if I could create an army of robots here, I can conquer South Korea or whatever. The other thing that we have to realize, the artists, one of the things there is this Suno, this music generation platform. One of the being adopted are music teachers. Music teachers are saying this is exciting their students and empowering their students to be able to create music like never before. And so it's getting their students interested in doing this. So it's democratizing, if you would. But yes, I agree with you. I've actually had authors say it's not about the book at the end that got created. They love the process that took them potentially years to evolve some story and get it all exactly the way they wanted it. But there's a lot of other people that really don't care. And the reader, at the end of the day, do they care whether that author spent 3 years writing that book or the author spent 3 hours writing a book together with AI? Generally not. There are some people that want to buy handmade. They'll go out and say, oh, I want to get that cup and saucer, but I want one that was handmade. I'll pay extra for that. But there's an awful lot of people, most people are saying, look, I just want a cup because I need to drink my tea or coffee. And I really don't care whether it was handmade or machine made. Now, one of the things here we have to look is we're talking about sort of the leading edge of a lot of this technology. I want to go back. All of you are familiar with Alexa, right? Or either Alexa or Google Assistant or Siri. So just imagine here now we see things like this robot Figure 01 that's everything and talks to it. In around 2017, the MIT Media Labs, we all know who MIT is, what MIT is. They introduced a robot idea called Jibo. It never got produced because they fell into an area where they were promising more than they could deliver at the time, but they were able to demonstrate prototypes. And what this was simply like a monitor, a round monitor on a table that could swivel, and it had an avatar face going on inside of it, and it could, whoever was talking, so you could put it on your dinner table there, and whoever's talking, it would turn to that person and speak to that person, and it would participate in all the discussions going on around the table. Now, I've described here that when we think about what this robot Figure 01 can do, and now imagine we could do that today, put that brain, if you would, into Spot. That's the Boston Dynamics robotic dog. And you could take that when you go jogging in the park at night and have your bodyguard with you. But before we even get to that, we're going to be here that we'll see Alexa and the tools like this will become much more emotional. They're going to understand you so well because it'll have all the capabilities of a ChatGPT or a Claude 3 built into it with vision and with all the hearing. So it will know everything that's going on around it, but it will also know everything that's going around in your neighborhood of all the network cameras and stuff that's going on out there as well. This is the thing that's going to be changing our lives more than the small business, how quickly small businesses are going to adapt. If we see Alexa within the next couple of months, and we just have to realize Amazon just invested another $1.75 billion into Claude 3, into Anthropic, as that comes of age, and Siri we see just signed, or Apple just signed with Google for Gemini 1.5. When that comes into our everyday lives, and I can ask it anything, I can show it anything, I can point to something, and if that thing just has the capability to swivel, we're not talking about walking humanoid robots yet. We don't need to go that far to have our lives totally changed. Once I have that ability to create vision, something like Sora, to be able to go and have a company be able to say, oh, you're interested in buying product, I'll generate on the fly a video showing you specifically what you asked for. If you recall, one of the demos showed to try to raise the seat on a bicycle, and it showed exactly how that person, so the person said, how do I raise the seat on the, increase the height of the seat on the bicycle? And it showed them how. So imagine now that that's available, anything, about anything you can imagine. How do I do this? How do I do that? So we almost have custom YouTube videos being made on the fly to show you anything you're asking for. That is probably this year. And if that's this year, and I'll be publishing here, I'll send out on education, a whole series of education tools. And we have to realize, okay, if those tools are available to education, at least the people on the right side of the digital divide, what does that mean for education? If every piece of information is instantly available to every learner in a way that that learner understands it, what is our education system doing? So, these are maybe topics for some of our sessions in the future where we talk about here, okay, what's going on in education? What's going on here in the households? But I think we have to be very careful, because the idea of society, of humanity, we don't have such an institution in the world. In the world, individual businesses and individual people make decisions. So that company who sits there and says, I want to do it this way, well, guess what? If your competition is out there saying, hey, whoever wants, I'll give you the same solution at 1/10 the cost, or I'll give you a better solution at 1/10 the cost, that's going to drive the world. By profit motive for companies, the world's going to be, and even social entrepreneurism is going to be driven by the most result. So I don't see the we of society saying we're going to control this. And I don't even see how you can. Look at Mistral. There's so much going open source. So now you can have it on your computer at private in people's basements. So you're going to have millions of people around the world. It's not going to be just the big corporations out there. So how do you control that stuff? I don't know how you regulate things. You can regulate war devices. You can regulate what governments use, but I don't see how you're going to regulate what the private individuals are using.
Yeah, and
I have to, can I just say one thing, Miriam? Is that okay? Miriam, is that okay? Okay. I have a question for you, Bill. You know, you're right. And as Denise wrote over here, there's a deep concern. I'm so blessed. Like, I teach all over the world, and, you know, I've had the opportunity to have millions of students or speak to millions of students. And I have a small cluster of what I call diamonds in the rough. These are students from India, from everywhere in the world, but they're not millions of students. And these students happen to be okay if they use social media or if they don't. And so they grew up through the whole thing, which is something I love. And I have one student, she is from India. And she's like, I'm okay if I use Instagram or if I don't, okay? She recently Samsung AI phone, right? And she has her old phone. And the new Samsung AI phone, it's amazing. It does all kinds of crazy stuff. And she said, you know what? She now uses that phone as a phone for photography. Because she said, I do not want to be addicted. This phone knows everything I do when I do. So she turned off the AI feature of it, and she went back to her old phone, okay? Because like Denise said, she had become really addicted to it. I mean, really, she couldn't even stop going to sleep. Now her issue is, Bill, this is my question to you. Now her issue is that she's constantly looking at both phones, okay? And you're able to actually sign your other phone up under your old account. So the AI is still there, okay? So how does one manage that? That's a social pressure. How does one manage that because these things, especially like IBM, they set these things up so you're addicted. I have friends that work for IBM that when you get off the plane, they know what you want to look at and what you're going to do in the next 30 seconds. How do we work with that?
Yeah. We know in Europe that people are much more sensitive to social media and AI and privacy, and we see that in the laws that the Europe has just recently passed regarding AI. But the likelihood is we see, and there's a movement in the UN, in the Commons Cluster group of the NGO major group. To say, let's go back to an era before where we didn't have all this technology, where people talked to each other, where communities were more communities. Let's go back to that. And the risk that we're facing right now is that the people that either don't want to have this modern world where technology is running most of their lives, or because it's making it so easy, it's making a path least resistance, that they're saying, we don't want that future. And then you've got another group that's going on and saying, oh my God, look at what I can do with this. Let me try that. Let me try this. And they just get such a, they're like puzzle people. They love problems and they love solving problems. And they just get such a thrill about being able to do something that they weren't able to do yesterday. And the risk we run is that the people who live in that technology-driven world and the people who are resistant, don't want to, that go out and live in the eco villages and do everything just by trade and barter and want to grow their own vegetables in their backyard. These development, the human race almost divides into two species. This is a real risk that I see out there. And when that happens, we have the problem of those couple of percentage of people who are pushing the envelope. The more they can do with automation, the more they can do with AI, they're loving it, are going to start to see those other people as almost like chimpanzees. They're going to see them as, it's just nuisance, like mosquitoes. You know, if we could get rid of them, wouldn't it be better? That's a risk. And this is why in this group, we've got to be thinking about those things that could happen and making sure that we don't end up in a situation that's going to be bad for humanity. And I don't have the answers. I'm just saying what we have to be very aware of what's happening and what could happen, and trying to go and get people to think, we don't want to develop, we don't want to divide into two societies and two human race species. And that is a real risk, because you know, we see the chip was already successfully implanted in one person's brain, but there's their goal of with that neuro chip there, the goal is you don't need to type anymore, you don't need to speak anymore, you just need to think and to interact with the technology and the computers. And then we could end up with a whole bunch of people who are saying prosthetics, hey, if I could get legs that can run 10 times faster than other humans, if I could get exoskeletons integrated into my body, if I could get my eyes replaced with eyes that could see 10 times further, or my hearing, there's a lot of humans that would go for that. There's humans that are going to just say, hey, you know, I'm a paraplegic. If I could go and be able to walk again and do all these things again, I'm going to go for it. But where does it stop in just getting you back to where you were and getting you to where humans never were? These are some of the things that I think we have to be concerned. And the last point, I want to give an example of real life. There's a lot of reports now out there, because one of the most successful applications in corporations right now is HR recruiting. Most of the time now, the scanning of resumes and the interviewing, the first round of interviewing of candidates for jobs is increasingly being done by AI. In other words, you get that call, you're set up for your call, you go, you have the interview, you're talking here to what you think is a human, but in reality, in the end, it's an AI who is trying to figure you out to see how good a fit you are for what they're looking for. So that's one example where we see that spreading incredibly quick through corporations. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. If I don't see any hands or any thoughts, so maybe one message. Yeah. Yes, totally agree with this. I think, Denise, we should build on this point. Would you like to voice it out?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Bill, that I did see something, and I think it was a couple of weeks ago, where they were saying that the results are showing that AI being utilized in recruitment selection it's still flawed, because all the information that's being fed into it in which to create, you know, the selection criteria is flawed to begin with. So the results are still being produced, but maybe at a greater scale because it's AI. So I don't know, you know, data in, data out, I guess. And, you know, if you don't have good data going in, then the results are going to be just as poor.
Yeah, and this demonstrates it's not a question here of whether the solutions are 100% or best. It's the question of whether they're being used. And we're seeing this thing spreading, even though you're 100% right. It's very flawed in a lot of the things that it is doing. But because so many people are starting to use AI to write their resumes, companies are saying we have no choice, because the amount of resumes that we're now getting because of AI is exceeding our ability to process them. So these are some of the things where we have to bring it to the surface, but we have to realize that the decisions that are controlling the speed at which things are going are not necessarily under our control.
Actually,
I just wanted to
if you allow me to say, I mean, the issue of, for example, hiring, and you send in your resume, so it's from all parties, from the HR professional or the corporate, and from the individual applying. Everybody is using AI, and we're now in a mess because we might not have a real person in the middle at the end of the day to evaluate. So the whole thing is not the thing. Yani, I know Gail will be speaking next, but I would like to remind you that last time we touched upon prompt engineering and hallucinations. And if you want to bring out this topic later, I mean, we have a couple of minutes. So, Gail, the floor is yours.
I would love to speak on both of those. Oh, where's Denise? She left? Okay. So there's a deep concern, you know. There's a couple of things I want to say. AI is being provided by humans. There's a couple of robots that I had the opportunity to meet early on and up until now. Okay, and they're well known in the mainstream here. Many of these robots, they're walking around, they're talking and everything, and they've been seen all over the news. And here's what's interesting about that. I remember talking to people, and they were feeding, like in the back room, they were feeding the personality through, they had comedians literally doing it, feeding the robot what to say in response to people. Now that these robots have developed their own emotions, their own feelings, their own everything. Okay. And with that said, when now the manufacturer tried to engage with their own robot that they created and made, they cannot do it. They started using prompt engineering for it. The robot was not listening. It had gained its own persona. So these are the things that I get concerned about, because in those prompts, it's humans feeding those prompts. Okay. And when we're feeding those prompts, there's different ways to prompt. I know there's way people are being taught this and things like that. But, you know, Miriam, I go back to when you're dealing with those prompts, we're feeding information, even ChatGPT, Sora, or any of these platforms. Humans are feeding it in. That's what's giving AI its persona and its power. So, yes, on one hand, even governments will not be able to regulate. As I just said with Israel, their own 2 drones turned on them that they created. Okay, so and that was done through prompt engineering. Okay, so we are in I think we're in a lot of trouble if we don't learn how to engage with this. But the funny thing is, we talk like if we don't engage with this, we'll talk about the trends that are coming up. But we set the trends. We as human beings set the trends. So it's not like it's distinct from us. We have actually created that. And when it comes to the arts, like I've been in the arts for many years. I've worked with the person off the street to training Beyonce and her voice with her dad, okay, to other aspects of the arts with sculpture, whatever. It's not about name dropping for me. It's not about getting on here and getting on a soapbox. It's, for me, the arts really do matter. And a lot of people are seeing the difference in arts when they listen to it through AI. They said it's devoid of feeling. It's devoid of connection. They can tell the difference. Okay. And so I just don't want people to think that, I know what you're saying, Bill, but people know the difference. Just like they have AI kitchens now, that people are saying that the food tastes like nothing. Because when you put your soul into your food, that's what happens. So that's all I have to say.
If I could try to tie together what Gail just said with what Miriam was saying here about what we talked about last time, a big thing that's coming is agents. Agents is the big thing. GPT-5, all the rumors, even coming from NVIDIA, the head of NVIDIA, is that agents is the next generation. That's the big thing for this year. Now, what agents do is when we talked about, okay, humans did the prompting. Actually, now you can have agent technology where the agent technology creates the prompts. It goes and figures out what needs to be done, and it creates the prompts to do it. Then we have the capability of chaining prompts so that, or chaining bots. So what happens is that the agent technology goes and calls on a chatbot to do something, and then it looks at the results, and based on the results, it creates a new prompt, and maybe calling it an AI bot to do something. And now we then have a thing called reflection, where to the question of hallucination, where the AI technology puts in a layer that will double check its own responses and what it's doing. And if it's not doing what was originally called for, it'll do iteration. It will cause it to go, oh, try again. That's not an accurate result. That's not what we're looking for. Try again. And it will do it as often it needs to until it gets to the goal. So the technology, if you've not looked into agent technology, you really have to. Microsoft, everybody is charging down the road of this agent technology, which is a whole generation above things that we saw, like with ChatGPT and where the human is interacting with the AI. This is where the AI is doing it. And because just like a self-driving car, if the camera recognizes you're going to hit something, it'll steer it around that. It'll avoid it. It'll take that action on its own. And what we're seeing here, the word, when we talk about agents, we have to put in the word autonomous, because more and more companies want that. They want autonomous. They want to go and say, hey, if I'm checking what's coming off the assembly line to see if it's correct, I want the system to automatically reject the ones that are not working. I don't need it to go and say, call over a supervisor and say, should you do this? Or if it's in a medical emergency, I want this thing to take the action to save, and not just say, hey, some human, come here. I think this is the case. So we are going to be driving for autonomous things. Look at AutoGen for Microsoft, and there's a whole slew of them out there. And just be aware, and that the situation of hallucinations, the situation of bad data, the situation of generating synthetic data. Big business coming up in this year is synthetic data, where the AI generates data that could be likely or makes sense, so that they can run tests. This is being used a lot in the pharmaceutical industry here to test new medications. It's the same. It was used to generate AlphaGo when DeepMind. How we're going to play. The system taught itself and programmed that. So just a couple of thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah. In our part of the world, since discussion about AI is fairly new, we have startups, of course, like Bill, you were saying, we have a couple of startups who are built around the AI, but in the general public discussion, just public discussions in the media, policy, government level, it's still in its infant phase. And of course, as Gail was saying, whatever you feed the machine, the data comes out with results that AI generated. And for example, the talk now is that how can it be non-biased data? because the massive data is coming from other parts of the world. And should it be regionalized, for example, because of course we have some normative and traditional concerns about the results coming out of ChatGPT, because we have traditions and culture and religious. Sometimes answers from the generative AI are quite alarming to our communities. So should we feed the machine with what we believe to try to balance, or at least to get the results that we think that they are okay? How can we make sure all this talk is correct or safe for the benefit of the technology and society? So who would like to reflect
Let's
on
hear
that?
let's hear what Jerica and Gail have to say on that, and I have some thoughts on it, but I'll add mine at the end. Jerica,
I'd love for us to maybe, because it's quite lengthy, this whole social aspect, I'd love for us to, because we're, closing down on time, maybe have another discussion totally based around it. But what Bill was speaking about, us maybe mitigating that risk of having two types of humans, I'd like to talk about that, but also, in regard to what we're feeding the machine. In the chat, when Denise brought up the AI, being racist, if we're feeding it things, regionally, culturally, religious things, would that open up AI to possibly, be racist or oppressive? Would that be a factor?
Jerica, I can answer that 100%. There is several reports, especially coming out of MIT, where they're doing a lot of AI. Okay, before I, right during heavily into AI, and I started studying it a lot, and especially what was coming out of Harvard, MIT, and I particularly studied those schools because I get they were doing a lot in certain areas, and I had a relative that was sick, and they were doing a lot of breakthrough work in healthcare, right? Until they made an error that really was concerning to me. And here was an interesting error. It was a racial error, okay? It was a racially biased error. And there have been several people that have proven that AI is racist because why? People are inputting the information. I don't care, no matter what we build, unless there's, and I do believe aliens exist, so don't think I'm crazy, but I do believe that aliens exist somewhere in the universe. I don't think we're the only ones living. But there are several, and I can send reports to you guys. I'm talking recent, all the way back to 2016, but some serious reports of recent, of people who have been talking about year after year, who are well respected, that AI absolutely has bias in it in its hiring practices, okay? Especially amongst Black and brown people, okay? And Black and brown would be constituted as anyone who's not American. You could be, excuse my expression, I know you know that I'm not a racist person, but I mean, like, you could be the color white, in Latin America, okay? AI will still see you as a Black and brown person in some companies because it's non-American, okay? There are some, it's not even, and it's not even, I shouldn't say racist views. I should say it's views that it's been given, like in its hiring practices. There was one company, I forgot the name of it, who used alternative wording as they do in other HR practices. And so if you were Indian, you were IA. If you were African American, you were AA. If you were white American, you were WA. If you were Hispanic American, you were HA. Okay. So they unfortunately, the data person inputted this into the system and created the system where they inputted this into the system in that manner. Okay. So when it came to the hiring practices, the cultural approach, because there's culture in companies and people don't realize that. So the bottom line was the culture appropriation in this company. They started seeing that only one set of people were being hired. Okay, so and this was in the last 6 months. And they tried to fix it, and then they got another set of only one race. So this is absolutely there. I would like to do, like Jerica said, I would love to do something on social, okay, the arts, and also hiring practices.
Perfect. We have a plan now.
I-
All right.
Yeah, if I could
Please,
comment
Bill.
on
Oh,
the
let me say something if you allow me. Bill's comment will be the last one. We will have to conclude. So if you allow me, and then now we have a plan, and I will send you on the chat the plans and who would be responsible for them. So Bill, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Miriam, you talked about here regionalization and the bias related to regions and cultures. We see here the big push towards personalization, not just regionalization, but personalization. In other words, the AI getting to know each individual in the whole world and understanding what makes them tick, what their interests, where they go, what are their beliefs, and so forth. Now, this is being very often done by political forces that want to manipulate people, or marketing forces that want to manipulate people. The more they know about what turns you on and what motivates you, the more they can manipulate you. And as far as then the bias goes on this, the bias here has been shown. It's mostly the problem of the prompts. It's not the problem of data, because in the meantime here, we are no longer saying the data is just the data. Today, it's all about context, defining the context, so that if you want to go and make sure that you are not getting biased, you put in the context, exclude this kind of data, include that kind of data, so that you can really control very much the question of bias, for most bias, through using custom instructions and clearly defining context, pages long definition of the context. This is why people are so excited about Gemini having over 1 million token capability, so that you can have your prompts and all your information being so explicit as you want. Now, there's another kind of bias, though, that is really serious, and this is language bias, because almost all the data that was captured from humans is English based, and especially in the beginning, it was all based on English. So there's been many tests done that and this is something that Google, when they were releasing Gemini, that caused them to delay, because they found if you were not prompting in English, the quality of the answers went down significantly. And so maybe here with the translation tools, it's going to get better and better. But the fact of the matter is that the information that was captured is being captured more from specific societies and segments of societies than others. And that will also create bias. Then on the other hand, we have to be careful, because we have to understand, is all bias bad? And I'll bring up the example here that there's a country in Africa that just passed a law saying female genital mutilation is okay, according to their culture, that was a mistake to follow the UN's advice on that in the past, and they're reinstalling it. And I understand there's now almost a dozen countries that are thinking of similar laws, that women are not full human beings. And this.
I'm Bill. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Can you later on? Can you tell me what country that is? Because I'm in shock. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I think it was Guinea, but I'm not sure. I'll find out. I'll find out. But the bottom line is here, that we have in our cultures, just like there's those people that want to go to eco villages and everybody just barter and cut themselves off from the rest of the world and live like 150 years ago, like their great grandparents, or like primitive cultures, maybe living in some island in the Philippines that has not seen any modern things in the last 100 years. but that's a reality. That's a reality, and we do have to figure out what we want to do about it, because we don't want to necessarily say just because you don't want to have anything to do with the modern society, you lose all your rights. So but that's something we're going to have to discuss. But it's about context and the bias. Think here, a major example of bias in San Francisco. They just took away the licenses for self-driving cars for one of the major self-driving taxi companies there. And the reason is they said, look, these self-driving cars are having accidents. But the fact is here, they had less than half as many accidents per mile driven. Humans had twice as many, human drivers. And human drivers were 7 times more likely to have caused the accident, whereas the AI driven cars, a lot of those accidents were caused by another human driver in another vehicle. And that the human accidents caused 5 times as many serious injuries as the AI accidents. But because we have 2 levels of measure, we hold automation and AI and electronics to a higher standard than we do humans. We sitting there saying anything that's going to reduce injuries, and that we say they should never have an accident. And so that's another example of we get into. I think we in this session, I'm hoping we can get a lot of people to do is bring out and get people talk. If we're not talking about it, widespread AI is, there's a percentage of the world population ever set a prompt to any AI. An awful lot of people that I know who are intelligent and whatnot, and then you mention the word AI and computers, and they just say, I don't want to know, I don't want to know. And we can't afford that, because these things are marching on whether we're ready or not. City is not the one that's driving these things. So the idea that we as a society can change the direction on this is almost, I can't see any way that society right now, other than like the Geneva Conventions, to say we're going to ban warfare with AI just like we did for chemical and biological weapons. I don't know, but I'm hopeful. If we recognize the problem, at least we have a chance to do something about it. So thank you so much, Miriam, for organizing today's session.
Thank you,
here,
everyone.
Naveen
Amazing.
for getting our whole group going.
Yeah, I'm very happy with everyone's participation and everybody on board. I love the flexible environment that everybody's speaking, openly and taking, interested in what's being said. Now we have a couple of focus topics for future discussions, our webinars, and please, let's discuss it on Telegram or on the chat in WhatsApp.
Miriam,
Yeah.
by the way, would you send it over? I think because I had put it in the AI chat on WhatsApp, and then Jerica just wrote it in. Would you give us the Telegram link here?
Yeah, I have an issue to upload my or it is not
I'm over the phone here. Bill, can you just share the link of the Telegram here in one of the messages? Because Mariam and I are having difficulty in finding this. But Gail, are you already a member? Did you receive an email, or how did you know about the meeting?
Just
Bill.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this case, Bill can send you the invite to the Telegram.
Okay. Well, I had been on a couple of times, Naveen, and so has Jerica. We all came through. So that's
So we'll send you the even the
Yeah,
full.
and then-
Great.
Okay.
Both of you, the full,
Yeah, I'm sorry with my issues of connection.
there's a Google form.
no problem.
It's
And I
alright.
actually did fill out that form, Naveen. I never heard anything back.
Okay,
Oh,
we'll follow
okay.
up on that.
Okay.
We'll
Yeah.
follow up on that.
I think
right
Mohammed
away.
gets those,
Yes.
and
Yes.
yeah, so we'll follow up, to see if how many, to see how many form submissions we got anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll follow up on that right now.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you so
perfect.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
you.
Thank you, everyone. We'll be in contact again on the chat.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you, everyone.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you
See
so
you.
much.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Take care. Love the
Gail,
discussion.
Thank you.
Jerica,
Bye.
good seeing you here.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.